Hello guys, welcome to this session. I have made questions on very major authors today, but we will continue this over some days so that you will get a thorough overview of what kind of questions to expect. Welcome to this session, everybody. Yesterday I had shared with you the names of a lot of major authors and works which could be expected in MA entrance exams and NET also. And today we will do questions based on that. Are you ready? We will start now. No, Shubhra. How can I forget you, Shubhra? How are you? Okay. So, we are starting now. Which character in Jane Austen always reads his or her favorite book, The Baronetcy? Bolo? In Jane Austen, there is an aristocratic man who is actually poor now. And he is always reading one book called The Baronetcy. Who is that? No, Sayan, I don't forget anybody. I'm fine. Which character? Is it Sir Bertram, Sir Walter Elliot, Charles Bingley, or Mrs. Bennet? Dear friends, it's very, very important that you read original texts. Many questions in the exam are based on original texts. It is Sir Walter Elliot in Persuasion. Sir Walter Elliot, Anne Elliot's father in Persuasion. He's always reading his favorite book, The Baronetcy. He is reading about his own family in that book. Will you remember? Match these houses with the novels. Norland Park, Kellynch Hall, Pemberley, and Southerton Court. Can you see everyone? Do you know in which novel, which of these houses appears? Norland Park. In which novel is Norland Park? Slowly, it is possible to read all this. At least the classics you should read. Not every single book, but the classics that are often prescribed in universities. Every day for half an hour or 1 hour you do reading of original works. Then it will be possible. Yes, Norland Park is in Sense and Sensibility. Kellynch Hall is in Persuasion. Pemberley is in Pride and Prejudice. Southerton Court is the house of Rushworth in Mansfield Park. James Rushworth in Mansfield Park. Remember, at least read detailed summaries, okay? If you cannot read the novel, at least read detailed summaries. Did you like the question, guys? There are many country houses in Jane Austen. The names of these country houses could be very important because they are all associated with certain culture. Important. Okay, guys. Next. The Ward sisters. 2 of them married to rich and acceptable men, but one who married an unsuitable man in rebellion. These Ward sisters are in the novel. Do you know, guys? In which novel do you have the Ward sisters? It is in the novel Persuasion. Mrs. Lady Bertram is the rich woman. Mrs. Norris is also rich, but Mrs. Price, Fanny Price's mother, Mrs. Price, married a poor man. Sorry, not Persuasion, it is Mansfield Park. Sorry. I am saying Mansfield Park story and saying Persuasion. It's Mansfield Park, I mean. Fanny Price's mother, Mrs. Price, is the poor sister. You know, the other sisters had not talked to Mrs. Price for 11 years. Lady Bertram and Mrs. Norris, they are rich people. Lady Bertram is married to Uncle Bertram, Sir Bertram. Mrs. Norris is married to a clergyman. Mrs. Price is poor. Mansfield Park. I was thinking of answering you some question here and then. What are you asking, Akanksha? Name some source for that means? It is Mansfield Park. Lady Bertram married to Uncle Bertram. And Fanny Price is coming to live with the Bertrams. Okay. The picnic to Box Hill, which turns out to be a disaster, takes place in which novel? The picnic to Box Hill. Box Hill is made of chalk, I think. It is a chalk hill. Many characters are going there, but they all do not mingle with each other. It turns out to be a disaster. You know, superficially, their relationships had no problem, but when it becomes more intimate, it turns out that these people cannot get along well with each other. In which novel is the picnic to Box Hill happening? The picnic to Box Hill is in Emma. Emma, the Westerns, they're all going to Box Hill and they are not getting along well with each other. Frank Churchill, Jane, then Harriet, everybody goes to Box Hill. And their relationship doesn't come out well. They don't have a good time. And Emma also ends up insulting Miss Bates. All this happens. Miss Bates is the sister of Jane Fairfax. So please read detailed summaries at least. Lady Dalrymple and her ugly daughter, Miss Carteret. They are women of high social position, but they are uninteresting and unclever. And they are characters visiting Bath. Lady Dalrymple, Miss Carteret. Women of high social position, but they are uninteresting and unclever. Characters visiting Bath. In which novel? I forgot to write that. In which novel do they appear? There are only 2 novels with Bath setting. There are only 2 novels with Bath setting. Yeah, true. Emma says to Miss Bates that you can only say 3 dull things. Correct. There are only 2 novels with Bath setting. One is Persuasion, the other is Northanger Abbey. So answer is Persuasion. Sir Walter Elliot just gets friendly with them. They are cousins, they are relatives. Lady Dalrymple and Miss Carteret in Persuasion. Please read a detailed summary at least from Spark Notes or Lit Charts. Yes. Who of the following published the first edition of GM Hopkins' poems in 1918? Who of the following published the first edition of GM Hopkins' poems? GM Hopkins had died long before that. Guys, will you please like the video? Yesterday's video you must not have liked, na? Because I didn't have a PowerPoint. I'm so sorry. Bolo. Who of the following published the first edition of GM Hopkins' poems? Yes, it is Robert Bridges. It is indeed Robert Bridges. GM Hopkins had died long before that. It is Robert Bridges. God is in his heaven and all is right with the world. These are lines from God is in his heaven and all is right with the world. These are lines from, today I was asking Karnataka assistant professor exam people this question. It is from Pippa Passes. What is Pippa Passes? Pippa Passes is a play where Philippa or Pippa is a silk winder girl. She has one day holiday in her life, in her year, and she is going on the stage meeting different people, and the people's corruption is revealed. The people are all corrupt. They are all evil people. That evil is revealed. God is in his heaven and all is right with the world. Pippa Passes. Will you remember? It is by Robert Browning. It is by Robert Browning. Remember, Robert Browning was an optimist. And this shows optimism. In Victorian period, Tennyson was a pessimist. Robert Browning was an optimist. And this poem or this drama shows optimism. Okay. Now, which of Wordsworth's works record his impressions of a manufacturing district of northern England? Wordsworth's which work talks about the manufacturing district of northern England? Do you know? This work was part of a bigger work. At this time, there was a lot of industrialization happening in England. And he talks about the excessive manufacturing industries and its impact on rural life. In which poem is he talking about the impact of manufacturing industry? It is the Excursion. Will you read extra? Will you please read extra? There is a prospectus at the beginning. Did you know? There is a prospectus at the beginning of the Excursion. It can be read as a play also. Did you know that? The Excursion can be read like a play also. He talks about a lot of important things here. It's a very philosophical poem. And this philosophical poem is often compared to a church. The Recluse is the bigger philosophical poem Excursion was part of. Recluse was structured like a church. Did you know that? The Recluse was designed like a Gothic church. It is a very difficult poem actually. It is not easy to read it. Okay. Now, in which poem do these characters appear? Heidi, Julia and Sultana. Heidi, Donna, Julia, Sultana. Characters in Don Alfredo. They are all characters in Don Juan. They are all characters in Don Juan. Will you remember? Heidi is the heroine of Don Juan. Heidi is the heroine of Don Juan. Remember, okay? Don't forget. These are very basic, important things. Who among the following is not a Scottish Chaucerian? Who among these writers is not a Scottish Chaucerian? Is it William Dunbar, Robert Henderson, James I of Scotland, John Skelton? Who among them is not a Chaucerian, Scottish Chaucerian? It is John Skelton. John Skelton is not a Scottish Chaucerian. Certayne Notes of Instruction is considered the first English manual of versification. Who is the author? Certayne Notes of Instruction. Today I taught this in criticism and theory course. Are people doing criticism and theory course here in YouTube? Bolo. Who is the author? It is George Gascoigne. George Gascoigne wrote Certayne Notes of Instruction. It is a manual for good poetry. How to write poetry. That is what it is about. Will you remember, guys? Thomas Campion wrote Observations on the Art of English Poesy. Observations on the Art of English Poesy. William Webb wrote Discourse on Poetry. George Pudenham wrote The Art of English Poesy. Alright. Go Lovely Rose is a famous poem of the 17th century. What does it illustrate? Rationalism, Christian humanism, carpe diem philosophy, humanism. Go Lovely Rose is by... Who wrote Go Lovely Rose? It is by Edmund Waller. Go Lovely Rose is by Edmund Waller. Major poem of the 17th century. What does it illustrate? It is carpe diem philosophy. Carpe diem philosophy, correct. Go Lovely Rose by Edmund Waller. Edmund Waller was a Cavalier poet. William Wycherley, David Garrick, Richard Brinsley Sheridan are all associated with which of the following theatres? Is it Drury Lane Theatre, Royal Court Theatre, Royal Shakespeare Theatre, Citizens Theatre? William Wycherley, David Garrick, Richard Brinsley Sheridan associated with which of the following theatres? They had owned shares in, they wrote for Drury Lane Theatre. William Wycherley, David Garrick, Richard Brinsley Sheridan all associated with Drury Lane Theatre. Will you remember, guys? In the Vicar of Wakefield, Mrs. Primrose and her daughters are skilled at manufacturing a certain beverage. What is it? Is it tea, chocolate milk, cider, gooseberry wine? In the Vicar of Wakefield, Mrs. Primrose and her daughters are good at manufacturing what beverage? Is it tea, chocolate milk, cider, gooseberry wine? It is gooseberry wine. Okay, gooseberry wine. Reminding you to read detailed summaries. Then you will get it. Detailed summaries. Please read, okay? After detailed summaries you read, with my training, you will be real great scholars. In which of the following plays are Berenger and Jean, Jean. Berenger and Jean, important characters. The Chairs, the Rhinoceros, Miss Julie, the Ghost Sonata. Berenger and Jean are important characters in Berenger and Jean are important characters in Eugene Ionesco's The Rhinoceros. Eugene Ionesco's The Rhinoceros. Abhi, there is a lot of time for net. Before that, every day for half an hour or 1 hour, will you read detailed summaries of classics? People with a lot of reading only should pass the exam. That is how they are thinking. You should read, okay? Stories you should understand, okay? Details. Promise me, in internet all detailed summaries are available. You should just sit and read. Okay guys, after that I will teach you how to remember, what are the important things to remember, everything I will teach you. Which character says these lines? You have never loved me. You have only thought it pleasant to be in love with me. हाँ करूँगी. Nora Helmer, Candida, Eliza Doolittle, Gwendolyn Fairfax. You have never loved me. You have only thought it pleasant to be in love with me. Is it Nora Helmer, Candida, Eliza Doolittle, Gwendolyn Fairfax? Will you like the video, everybody? It is Nora Helmer. I will do IGNU also. IGNU PhD entrance. Do you think these questions will not come in IGNU PhD entrance? Many of these questions will come in IGNU PhD entrance also probably. Did you understand? They are all classics, and all classics they will all ask in any exam. In which work did Walter Benjamin argue that art has been transformed by modern technology? In which work did Walter Benjamin argue that art has been transformed by modern technology? Bolo. I will try to solve gate paper. I didn't get time to look at it. Bolo, it is the work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction. The work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction. Will you remember, guys? Walter Benjamin. He was a major Frankfurt School critic. Henna? Major Frankfurt School critic. And Walter Benjamin talked about aura. Aura is the quality of major original literary works. Original literary works have aura, he said. Frankfurt School. Isn't it? Will you remember? Now, next question. Which of the following books is not by bell hooks? Definitely they will ask bell hooks, okay? Who is the author of Ain't I a Woman? It is bell hooks. Ain't I a Woman is by bell hooks. Who wrote Feminism is for Everybody? Feminism is for Everybody. That is also by bell hooks. Who wrote The Female Malady about hysteria? It is the answer. The Female Malady is by Elaine Showalter. Elaine Showalter wrote The Female Malady. Teaching to Transgress. I will reply. I didn't get time to reply to WhatsApp messages. I'll reply. Teaching to Transgress is by bell hooks only. Okay. Then, which work of Betty Friedan discussed the fundamental grievances of middle-class American women, their entrapment in private domestic circles, and inability to pursue public career? Which work of Betty Friedan discussed these fundamental grievances of middle-class women? They are entrapped in private domestic circles. They are unable to pursue public career. It is in the book The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan, 1963. This book inaugurated second wave feminism. Henna, The Feminine Mystique. She is talking about the myth that there is something called femininity. I mean, women are just oppressed. They are denied normal life. The post-colonial critical work, Shakespeare, Race and Colonialism, was written by... Who wrote Shakespeare, Race and Colonialism? Did you like the questions, everybody? Will you please like the video? Post-colonial critical work, Shakespeare, Race and Colonialism, was written by Anya Lumba. Anya Lumba. Okay, very famous book. What is the collection of essays by Edward Said, in which the author attempts to trace the connection between imperialism and culture? Easy question. In the 18th, 19th and 20th centuries, there was a connection between imperial empire and culture. And the author attempts to trace these connections in which book? It is in the book Culture and Imperialism. Culture and Imperialism. Edward Said's 1993 book. Isn't it? 1993. Who wrote the foreword for Selected Subaltern Studies, which was edited by Gayatri, Spivak and Ranajit, Guha? Who wrote the foreword to Selected Subaltern Studies? Did you like these questions, guys? Tell me. It is Edward Said. Edward Said wrote foreword to Selected Subaltern Studies, a cyborg manifesto published in 1984, is an exercise on feminist post-structuralism, prefiguring both queer theory and later conceptualizations of post-humanism. Who wrote a cyborg manifesto? 1984 published, exercise on feminist post-structuralism, prefigures queer theory. Of course, you know Donna Haraway. Donna Haraway is the author of Cyborg Manifesto, isn't it? Donna Haraway. Who wrote the well-wrought urn, Studies in the Structure of Poetry, which is considered a seminal text in the new critical school of literary criticism? Bolo. The well-wrought urn, Studies in the Structure of Poetry. Who is the author? It is Cleanth Brooks. The well-wrought urn, of course, is written by Cleanth Brooks. Then, who studied psychology in the light of structuralism, blending Freud and Saussure? Who studied psychology in the light of structuralism, blending Freud and Saussure? It is Jacques Lacan. Jacques Lacan studied psychology in the light of structuralism, blending Saussure's linguistic ideas with psychology. Saussure and Freud together. Which art critic said, mystification is the process of explaining away what might otherwise be evident? Mystification is the process of explaining away what might otherwise be evident. Who said this, do you know? It is John Berger, Ways of Seeing. John Berger is the author of Ways of Seeing. Hannah? Very important writer. Mystification is the process of explaining away what might otherwise be evident. Which Indian literary critic started the Bhasha Research and Publication Center? Do you know that? Indian literary critic who started the Bhasha Research and Publication Center. It is G.N. Devi. G.N. Devi. Which Hungarian Marxist philosopher introduced the concept of reification? Hungarian Marxist discussed the concept of reification. It is Georg Lukács. Georg Lukács. The Canadian Postmodern is a discussion of postmodern textual practices. You know, postmodern textual practices used by Canadian writers in the late 20th century. Postmodern writers such as Margaret Atwood, Robert Crouch. How did these writers employ postmodern practices? This book, Canadian Postmodern, which discusses postmodern Canadian authors, is written by Canadian Postmodern is a book written by Linda Hutcheon, of course, because Linda Hutcheon is a postmodern writer, postmodern feminist Canadian writer. Which work by Gauri Viswanathan describes the introduction of English studies in India under British rule and its function? So, one famous book by Gauri Viswanathan describes the introduction of English studies in India under British rule and its function as an effective form of political control. So, English studies is politically controlling us. Cultural assimilation is happening because of it. So, that is masks of conquest. That is right. Masks of conquest. Correct. Very important book. Which is Seamus Heaney's first collection of poems published in 1966. Seamus Heaney's first collection of poems. Seamus Heaney is an Irish poet, as you know. Which is the famous collection of poems of Seamus Heaney that came in 1966. That was his first collection. It is Death of a Naturalist. Death of a Naturalist. In which poem does Seamus Heaney talk about an Iron Age human sacrifice preserved in a peat bog? An Iron Age human sacrifice preserved in a peat bog. In the Iron Age, some human being was sacrificed, was killed, and then he was preserved in a peat bog. Definitely questions from Seamus Heaney will be asked in MA entrance, etc. Seamus Heaney, very important poet. Okay, guys. It is The Toland Man. The Toland Man is the story of a man who died in the Iron Age, preserved in the bog. Will you remember? In which poem of Seamus Heaney does he talk about islanders living in fear of a coming storm and having no shelter? Islanders living in fear of a coming storm and having no shelter. In which novel is it? Poem is it? It is the poem Storm on the Island. Will you remember? Storm on the Island. Which poem of Seamus Heaney is about his brother who was killed in a car accident when he was only 4 years old? Which poem of Seamus Heaney is about his own little brother who was killed in a car accident when he was only 4 years old? Everybody would know this, na? Which is the poem? It is the poem Midterm Break. The poem by Seamus Heaney called Midterm Break is about his brother killed in a car accident. In Mau Mau Rebellion, who fought against whom? Is it Nigerians against Americans, Kenyans against the English, Caribbeans against the English, Vietnamese against the Americans? In Mau Mau rebellion, who fought against whom, Bolo? It is the Kenyans against the English. The Kenyans against the English. In which poem does Derek Walcott mention Joseph Brodsky, a Russian poet who lived in exile? Derek Walcott, another very important poet, remember. They will definitely ask about Derek Walcott. In which poem does Derek Walcott mention Joseph Brodsky, a Russian poet who lived in exile? It is Forest of Europe. Forest of Europe. Derek Walcott has written about Odd Job. He has written a poem about Odd Job. What is Odd Job? Is it a bull terrier? Is it a German shepherd? Is it a Persian cat? Is it a poodle? It is a bull terrier. Odd Job, the bull terrier. That is the poem. Derek Walcott wrote Odd Job, the bull terrier. Will you remember? Heart, you are in my heart as the bird rises. Heart, you are in my heart while the sun sleeps. Heart, you lie still in me as the dew is. You weep within me as the rain weeps. These are lines from which poem? Poodle is a dog. Poodle is a dog. In which poem do you have these lines? These are lines from which poem of Derek Walcott? It is Adam's Song. All these are poems by Derek Walcott. Okay. All these are famous poems by Derek Walcott. Will you remember, everyone? Here he comes now. Here he comes. Papa, Papa. A child is telling his father this line in the poem. Which poem? Here he comes now. Here he comes. Papa, Papa. Is it In the Virgins, Midsummer Tobago? Parades, parades. It is not pardes, it is parades. After the storm. It is in parades, parades. The child is looking at the parades and saying this to his father. The child is looking at the parade and saying this to his father. Will you remember? In which of his poems does Derek Walcott describe a carnival which he does not celebrate and he feels detached from? Derek Walcott is describing a carnival which he does not celebrate and he feels detached from. All this are Karnataka, assistant professor exam people's questions also. All these can be asked in Karnataka exam also. It's coming up in March. So, Mass Man. Derek Walcott's Mass Man is about a carnival. What are the main themes of the Gulf and other poems? The Gulf and other poems. Is it luxury and richness? Love and beauty? Loneliness and exile? Poverty and hardship? It is loneliness and exile. Loneliness and exile. Which poem by Derek Walcott begins with the line quoted from Thomas Browne's Urn Burial? Which poem by Derek Walcott begins with the lines quoted from Thomas Browne's Urn Burial? Bolo. It is Ruins of a Great House. Ruins of a Great House. Will you read all these poems, guys? These are all very important poems. Will you read them? Mass Man, Ruins of a Great House. Guys, will you please like the video? Did you like this video? I think they're awesome questions. I hope you liked them. Then, in the play, they're all questions very important in NET also. NET, SET and any exam, Karnataka Assistant Professor. I don't know why people are not joining. In the play Dream on Monkey Mountain, who appears to macaque in a dream? who appears to macaque in a dream? It is a white goddess. A white goddess appears to macaque in a dream. Then, which book by Derek Walcott reimagines the Trojan War as a fight between Caribbean fishermen? Is it the Odyssey, the Iliad, a retelling, Homer's Ulysses? It is Homer's. Homer's is a poem by Derek Walcott that reimagines the Trojan War as a fight between Caribbean fishermen. In which play by Derek Walcott is there intertextual reference to Robinson Crusoe? Bolo. In which poem by Derek Walcott is there intertextual reference to Robinson Crusoe? Will you please share this video link in your groups, guys? Tell people this is very important session. All are very good questions, right? Very good questions. It is not only about MA entrance. It is about every exam. Don't you know me? Whenever I teach you, I will make... Sorry, guys. Whenever I teach you, I will make it very useful for every exam. Don't I? Which poem? Sorry, it is pantomime. I forgot to answer. It is pantomime. Which poem begins with a Latin epigraph from Seneca? And the first line is, stern daughter of the voice of God. Which poem begins with a Latin epigraph from Seneca? Please share in your groups, guys. If you say, only people will come. If I say, people won't come. People are thinking, no, she is trying to sell something. I don't want to go. If you say it is useful, then they will understand. Latin epigraph from Seneca. You can see it in Ode to Duty. Ode to Duty. It begins with the line, stern daughter of the voice of God. Hana? Stern daughter of the voice of God. Which is the sequence of 132 sonnets? Sequence of 132 sonnets that Wordsworth wrote that addresses the Catholic question. Which is the group of 132 sonnets? Catholic question, it is ecclesiastical sonnets. Ecclesiastical sonnets. 132 sonnets are there in that group. And it has theme of Catholicism. Catholic question. Will you remember, guys? Now, next question. In which poem does Wordsworth compare the evening to a nun? In which poem does Wordsworth compare the evening to a nun? It is the famous poem, It is a Beauteous Evening, Calm and Free. In this poem, Wordsworth is taking a walk with his daughter, French daughter. Isn't it? So we have come to the end of the questions. I have done with you over 50 questions of excellent quality. You should watch this video again. Very, very important. And read all these books and poems that I have mentioned. Again, I will do more questions like this, and you will be able to get a lot of practice for your exams. Okay, please come tomorrow also. I don't have to call you every day. Please understand that whatever exams you are writing, I am doing for that only, so that it will help everybody. So please come, okay? Okay, I will share this PPT in our group also. Okay, guys. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Bye.